there's a small percentage chance when it's so incomprehensible like that somebody goes and tries to derive meaning from it, and then they accept it as like, oh, they went beyond. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nii-San podcast. We're on episode 32 now. I am Josh Xell, and with me is
Crim, also known as the Asian Avenger, the best taste in anime, obviously.
Yeah, we're just gonna skip over the content comment. I mean, so Crim,
do not edit that out. Leave that in, editor. Thank you.
Funny enough, it seems like maybe something has changed. It's hard to know because you're in front of a green screen. But isn't there some big news, Crim?
There is big news. Now that we are pretty much neighbors, I think that would be a pretty cool thing if we just did more content together in person.
Yeah, wow, look at that. Yeah.
Wow. You could, wow.
Anytime I say wow, it's just Owen Wilson comes to mind. But no, that's it's super big. I think for the Nii-San podcast in the future, like we can do IRL episodes. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Expect so much more, right? Because now we'll have IRL episodes or just anything like reactions to whatever, reactions to when Xell finally falls in love with Zenitsu as a character. I get it. Like, it's all there.
If that ever happens, I will buy you a boba.
Well, you might already owe me boba from Cowboy Bebop looking pretty good. So.
Well, we'll see. That's still that bet's still on.
That puts us at parity, by the way, because I owe you for Death's Dutch Baron show, whatever. Death's Dutch Oven.
True. But yeah. So, anyways, going back to the topic at hand with the anime, couple of pieces of news. So first thing I wanted to talk about is that My Hero Academia World's Heroes Mission opened for a $6.4 million, which puts it, I think, at number 2 in the U.S., which is kind of sweet. So we talked about how Demon Slayer has been killing it when the Mugen Train was like number 1 in America and stuff, and like My Hero coming up big too, number 2, and like I think anime movies are going to be a mainstay in American cinema, for better or worse. And we've talked about that in a previous episode. So if you guys want to hear more about why we think anime movies and this whole trend towards anime movies is good or bad, check that out. But yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to watch it. I've heard decent things, and at the very least that it is killing it at the U.S. theaters.
Our goal, dude, we got to make it so that eventually Crunchyroll, Funimation, all those places, they are throwing themselves at our feet to invite us to the red carpet stuff.
Obviously. I mean, we can be the Ebert and what is it? Who are those 2 reviewers?
Yes, Roger Ebert and I cannot remember.
I don't remember the other guy, but sorry, other guy.
Just Roger Ebert and Roger Ebert too.
Yeah, Robert. Oh God, that's even worse. If that guy was listening to the podcast, I'd be like, I'm so sorry.
Well, it's okay. We're the anime versions. It'll be fine. It's acceptable.
Yeah. I'll be Crim too in this case. The Asian Avenger too. No, but so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how some of these other movies that are coming up in U.S. theaters pretty soon, like how they're gonna do. Other than that, SAO gets another announcement for another season. So for you SAO haters, it's just here to stay, man. I don't know what to tell you, SAO. It's weird because coming from the Western audience, like. I literally don't know any single person who continues to watch the show. I don't know a single person who's like...
Don't you watch the show?
No, I haven't watched SAO for a while now. And like, I'm like probably the closest thing to an SAO apologist without actually being one. And like most people, I feel like from the Western side really hates it, but I know that Japan like loves SAO. So it's kind of interesting to see the dichotomy there of differences between like the Japanese audience and Western audience. But yeah.
But why?
Dude, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. But why? I don't. Okay. I mean, look, I know, I get it. like this is like the Crim. You're not allowed to question anything because your taste is so divine, you know, like and above the average person.
I was thinking of a different word than divine, but yeah.
Divine. Yeah, well, that's what I was.
Deviant,
Deviant,
you know, diluted.
No.
Disgusting.
It's getting diluted by talking to others. You know what I mean? Because like it's such unfiltered, pure, and just amazing taste.
I'm gonna continue to drink this wine and ignore everything.
Wine? What are you talking about? That's Coca-Cola. Everyone watching at home or listening.
Is it bad? I'm older than 21. It's not like,
dude. I mean, yeah, I guess that I mean, I don't know that. I can't confirm that. Why don't you show us your ID on screen? Just put it on there so we all.
Oh yeah, let me just. My social security card's right over here, so let me just.
Yeah, if you could also give us your credit card while we're at it. But yes, so I. All that aside, I am excited to see where this goes for, I guess, movies, but at the same time, we know how this is. I mean, this could be bad, this could be good, but whatever. Sword Art's got more stuff. If you like Sword Art, great news for you. If you hate Sword Art as much as I did after Alfheim, well, nothing new, right? Another day, another Sword Art.
Yep.
Another day, another Sword Art.
Is there any news that you wanted to share, Crim? Because I'm out. This felt like a pretty short week for me, news-wise.
So, yeah, like this week news has been a little bit slow for anime, but if you want to move into the world of manga, maybe you read it, maybe you don't. It's Spy Family. It just got announced today, or was it yesterday? I don't know. Time is a concept that I have not grasped quite just yet. So, but yeah, so that is going to be the big thing. And then that's probably the biggest news that's come out recently because that manga was pretty popular. If you haven't read it yourself, it's pretty fun. It's pretty, it's good. And another bit of news, because this could affect us very soon here, everyone watching at home, especially all you anime watchers. Chris Pratt is going to voice Garfield in the new movie. And as you know, we talked about the Mario.
What can't this man do?
Well,
that's actually not confirmed yet.
There's a reason why I'm bringing this up, and it's because how long until everything is just Chris Pratt voiced? I mean, pretty soon Kirito is going to be voiced by Chris Pratt in Japanese.
That would be ridiculous. And it's getting to the point where it's so ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, why not? What's the worst that could happen?
Just remember, everyone listening, watching, think about this years from now. This is the title: Chris Pratt, voice of our generation.
Takes over the world.
Well, whatever. I mean,
yeah, I legitimately am like, yeah, sure, dude. He's already Mario. Like him being Garfield doesn't even. I heard that. It went into my ear hole and it came out just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like I don't know. So
well, yeah, sure, why not? I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's like as much news as we've got. But that's not the main topic here this week. Obviously, I think there's something that you and I we've often talked about, right? And it's something that's kind of every single one of us anime watchers have had to endure in some way, shape, or form, and it's the way that animes end.
Yeah.
Now, usually all good things have to come to an end, right? Unless you're One Piece, the fun is never ending. Or Shin-Chan, like all good things do eventually come to an end, but there is a way you can go about that, and it's not always the greatest. And anime excels in it not being the greatest. So
yeah, it's funny. Oh god damn it. Anyways, again, I need another sip of this Coca-Cola.
I'm sober. That's the worst part, and I'm just reaching for all the low-hanging fruit.
The thing that's interesting is that I think over the years, anime really has developed this sort of reputation for having just piss poor endings, and it's happened since the dawn of anime. I swear to God, like as far back as I can remember, anime just like 90% it feels like has really poor endings, and it's crazy because sometimes the anime can start off so good and then just comes crashing. And so we've come
Yeah.
up with a couple of reasons and a couple of categories of like why anime can have such poor endings.
Why don't we go over those categories first? Why don't you list them off?
So the reason why this came up in the first place is because recently,
An anime has ended poorly. But
yeah.
let's go over the top. You'll just wait till we won't reveal it.
So
We
so
won't
we
reveal it
want to
quite
go
yet.
over the topics first. Okay.
Yeah, we'll
So
go over the topics first.
The general buckets, I would say, is like anime originals. Tend to have really wonky endings. We have anime that just have adaptations that have just didn't hit the mark on whatever respective ending. And then you have some of the more like serialized long form content like Bleach, Naruto, Fullmetal Alchemist. Like these are examples of other anime that just like feel like they've gone a really long time, and then somehow at the ending it just doesn't quite make it. And then my last category is No Game No Life, which there's no ending. They left us off on a cliffhanger and just haven't looked back since. So these are the categories that I kind of want to talk about. And yeah, so going back again to why this topic even came up is because recently we had a show that both me and Crim were lauding as like, oh, this is like one of our favorite anime of the season, and that was true. We
have to go back and edit the title, by the way, of the previous episodes, maybe because of this show. But
that one did not age particularly that well. Aged like fine yogurt. So anyways, so that show that we're talking about is Fena Pirate Princess, and for so long, for so many weeks, I was singing its praises week after week, and I was very excited to watch every single episode. And then literally in like the last like 2 episodes, I realized something was horribly wrong. And Fena, I mean, should we talk about Fena just in a little more detail, I guess?
Yeah. Well, let's go into that because that's going to be pretty important because
I think it sets it up to where I think a lot of anime originals come to have a lot of problems, which is that it feels like either it's a situation where there's too many cooks in the kitchen, where there are too many like loose ends to try to tie up neatly into a good ending, or they just it actually, I think in essence, we just
sometimes
don't
just
know.
flat out lazy.
Yeah. Well, it's just like they just didn't know how to end it, and so they just chucked something together, and they were like, "Oh God, I mean, we did the best we could, man. I don't know what you want."
Maybe the first 10 episodes will carry this.
Yeah, I mean, it got me close. It got me to watch the entire show, and if that's what they were going for, they succeeded. But no, and specifically with Fena, like they set the story up to be this sort of like swashbuckling tale of this girl who's trying to find sort of her destiny, going across the ocean, finding all these like mystical, magical clues, and figuring out like the source of it all. And
yeah.
And of course, the ending has to explain where that all ends up. Now, the problem is when we get to the ending of Fena, there are so many loose ends that they never really touched upon again from its previous things. And I think like good endings in any media ever does a really good job of finding good ways to end all the different pieces that were floating around, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like for Fena in particular, it was disappointing that like, I remember as I was watching it, the main sort of like question of what is Fena's destiny and all that was being answered, but then I was like, what happened to like the dude who was chasing them, who they were like really afraid of?
They literally never mentioned him again. It's not even like, they didn't even acknowledge his existence. It's like they went and blipped into another timeline.
Yeah,
like
he just disappears, and that's just it.
I thought because I thought they were on the run, like from Abel, this dude, and like we never hear about the other dude ever again. We only get focused on we focus on Abel, and that's about it.
Yeah, which was actually a major plot point in why it was such a deliberation for all the people that were with Fena to even join her in the first place, because there was like this pressure from that apparently disgustingly good samurai ninja guy who was going to come after them and kill them all for ditching their clan. And
what about?
So they just dropped that.
Yeah, they just dropped. Well, they dropped that, and then also they failed to expand on a decent amount of things, right? Like, I mean, I had noticed, much like Xell, I didn't know anything was fully wrong until episode 12, but I felt weird at episode 11. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe. So the thing, though, is like I noticed eventually by the time we got to episode 11 and the episode count, I'm like, this is almost the end of the season. And I don't know if this show's going on much farther than episode 12 or 13. We don't, like, first off, we don't know anything about the dude that was mentioned. But on top of that, we don't know anything, like, about the crew of these killer cutthroat mercenaries that Fena's been rolling with. We don't know anything about them. Like, they mention it, they allude to it, they're like, oh, we know what crew you roll with. It's like, okay, are you going to expand on that? Like, you give us this little, like...
Yeah, they made such a big deal about, like, these guys and their history with her bloodline and, like...
Yeah.
That they were just like, I guess that's it. That's all the information we've got, dude.
And Stan, like, right, like Ishtan or whatever, like the suave, like, good-looking ninja dude. I mean, I just kept calling him. I mean, editor, you can edit this if you need to, but I kept calling him Dane. But the thing here is, like, they also opened up the line of, you know, his family bloodline is also obsessed with this relic, this item, right? We don't know anything about that either. And it's just like you showed us, like, you know, him brooding over the relic, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so there was just so many questions that got asked that never was answered. And then that's so, like, while you're still trying to, like, hope that, okay, I don't know how they're tying it all together. In the last 2 episodes, easy, simple fix. They don't do it at all. And then you get blindsided by, like, I'm okay with fantasy, right? I get a little bit, I knew that from the direction they were going, is going to get a little bit mystical, right? Yeah. Okay, sure, Gates of Eden, whatever. But I did not expect them to just fully... What? Like this is the one, like Xell had mentioned, a lot of shows, I appreciate originals, right? So let's touch up on the first category here, right? The issue with originals. There's no source material. So, you know, you got to just kind of out of thin air pull these endings out of your ass, right? Like, and the issue here is, like, some shows reach for some big things, and to close it all, it's pretty tough. And I would say Fena didn't have to. I thought Fena had a pretty safe route, right? Like, they didn't have to reach as hard as they did. But that ending was pure nonsense, and it just felt like they got really high, took a bunch of hallucinogens, and were just like, okay. So what it is she's going to dance. She's going to do all these things. She's going to meet her mom, and Abel's going to just go to heaven and just be completely purged of all of his sins, or to Eden. And like, and the biggest thing was, like, so, okay, I think you and I, this is our biggest issue. It is, Fena is then met with this dilemma, right? She either forgets every single, like, you know, she either kills everybody, right, and just gets to live on with Yukimaru, or, you know, like, I believe it's then Yukimaru dies, but then everyone else, she sacrifices Yukimaru for everyone else around her to live, to continue on, right? And then there's
the thing was, basically, you either repopulate the world Noah's Ark style, they're going to reset the world, and you get to keep
together with Yukimaru, right?
Or everyone gets reset and everyone gets purged.
Right.
That was her choice.
Now, those are the 2 choices, right? But then, wait, what if we told you there was a third pill that you could take? The third pill was...
You never mix red and blue, dude.
Well, that's okay, because you know what? They bail you out. These 2 people, the little dude with the bowl cut and the dude that looked like he was the swordsman, I don't know, Jon Snow looking guy, like, essentially says, you know what? How about this? We'll present you with a third option. You forget who you are, and you don't remember anybody you've rolled with this whole time, your crew. So literally the ending is just Fena with black hair, and she does not know who these people are. Yeah,
and the execution of it all, and even though I'm comparing this to one of my favorite anime of all time, it's not a favorable comparison. They literally pulled the ending from the original Evangelion run, and they just copy pasted it right into Fena. Like, they had everyone go like, Yeah, Fena, we love you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Like, they
Good job.
basically did the exact same thing as Evangelion. And then this whole idea of like her choice and stuff, like, is that not just the human instrumentality project from Evangelion? Anyways, Fena, details aside, because like there's no reasoning with this ending. It's just they just didn't know how to end it, and so they chose this like super nonsensical, illogical route to end everything. And they were like, "Yep, chop it up." And my instinct is to say that I think that Fena was a show that they just had 12 episodes. They wrote themselves into a bunch of writer's debt that they could not actually get to a good ending for. And I think like a lot of anime, especially in the original side, is like this. I think Wonder Egg Priority fits exactly and does the like same sort of MO that Fena did, which is that you have an incredible premise and it feels really solid, and then you start writing some mysteries and some world building and this other stuff, and you add layers to it, and then suddenly at episode 10 you realize, oh god, guys, I thought this was a 24 episode show. And they're looking around like, oh no, you dude, writer guy, you need to end this in 2 episodes. What have you been doing? And the guy's like, okay, here we go. And like he just sticks all the plot points into a freaking blender, and he just like hopes that what comes out tastes good, right? And generally speaking, it just doesn't. It just doesn't. And I think
this is most common amongst originals.
I think originals is where they really suffer. And I don't like, I'm trying to diagnose why this happens. Cause like famously there are other anime with really bad originals.
Darling.
Yeah. Darling in the Franxx is a very, popular one. Guilty
It's a
Crown.
very good anime. Darling in the Franxx ended after episode 18.
Yeah,
and it was a great anime.
In that case, there just isn't an ending. It's like no gain, no life. No, Darling in the Franxx, Guilty Crown. There's tons of these anime originals where clearly, like in my opinion, the way I see this happening is the writers come up with a really good concept, and they're like, dude, we can sell this to a network, and the network sees it. They go, oh yeah, this premise about Wonder Egg Priority, about these girls who figure out their own traumas and like fight against it in this mystical, that is wonderful, beautiful. Let's ship it. 12 episodes, you got it. And then the 12 episodes, like they never told the writer about how many episodes they actually had. And yeah, it just feels like they weren't sure what to do with it. And so I think in like as Wonder Egg Priority's case, they it almost felt like they had to figure out if maybe there's going to be a new season or not. And I think it's one of the things that happens when the show, the developers of the show don't even know what the outcome for that show is. Because I imagine they go to these networks, they get the 12 episode thing, but they don't know if maybe it gets renewed for another season or whatever. And this is something that happens actually in traditional Western media too. There are TV shows where like the first season, the second season ends up being really, really good, but then you'll notice that like, oh, they need this show to like go on again because it got renewed for another season. And so at the very end of the season, they just add like some weird stipulation that increases it. Like one of my favorite examples of this is the show Prison Break, which was pretty popular back in the day. And like, hey, season 1, they break out of prison like the show says. And you know how they continued it on? They put him in prison again. and then when the show still did good, they threw him into Guantanamo. They just kept sending them into new prisons to break out of, to keep this idea that they're breaking out of prison. And like it's dumb, but like the writers clearly just didn't know if they would get a second season or whatever. And I feel like these shows, Fena, Wonder Egg Party, Darling in the Franxx, you have no excuse. You are a disaster.
I think that's just Darling in the Franxx has the exact same thing for me. I just honestly cannot understand how they came to that ending. Like it makes no sense how they got to that.
The thing is, Darling in the Franxx, at least the ending wraps things up. It just wasn't.
Oh yeah, satisfactory.
It just wasn't satisfactory, right? Like I know we bucketed all into originals, but I do think Darling in the Franxx has kind of a little different thing because like specifically I think Fena and Wonder Egg Party and like shows like that, like it just felt like they ran out of time and they just had all these ideas and they could never get to a conclusion that would satisfactorily tackle all the things that they brought up. And Darling in the FranXX cases, like it doesn't have that excuse. It had plenty of time. It did I think they intended the aliens to come. They just did not make it work, right? And so
I mean, space waifus probably was already there. Yeah.
Okay.
See, with originals, the problem is it's a lot like that. Like, do you think that it's better for that studios come up with like pretty much, hey, we'll take a shot on the premise. We are gonna for sure give you 24 episodes or like 15 episodes. Is it better to just know up front? Because like it feels like, much like you had mentioned, every time these animes they get made, they're made with a bunch of question marks at the end where they don't know where the finish line is. So
yeah,
and I feel like that's bad for a lot of shows, right? Like you want it to do well. And the thing is, it's not going to happen if you're just like constantly worried about like, just if you're even going to get a second season, right? So I don't know.
I was gonna say, you bring up a really good point, right? Like if you're a studio, do you gamble and say like, oh, we're definitely gonna get a second season, and you write yourself in a way that like ends on a cliffhanger, it lets you continue on for another 12 episodes, knowing full well that you might not even finish your story? Or do you like try to hedge your bets and try to like write a ending that could work, could not work, depending? I mean, that's what it feels like the studios end up going with, and it's so bad for the viewer, right?
As a business, it makes sense, right? Like you're trying to sell me on this product, and you're gonna make me buy what, like a year's worth of it, like product in advance. I don't know if I even like it yet, right? I don't even know how well it is, how much it does. But at the same time, I think somewhere in the anime industry, somebody's got to make the first move. And I think Netflix is starting to do that in places like that. That's why like it pains me to see these studios that are getting punished for taking a shot on originals. You know what I mean? Like I hate seeing this. This kills me on the inside because I think these studios are they are trying. And they want you to tell the story that you want to tell. And I think that's very important. And I think studios need to do that way more often than they are. Like, it's funny, too, because it's not like the big studios are doing it. Yeah. It's the smaller studios, which is weird. Because, like, you're the bigger studio. You have room to fail. You have all the safety nets in place. Why is it that the small studios, or obviously not small, but, like, smaller, like UFO Table, all these things, why are they not doing it?
Oh, they've got the fate money, dude. they're just cashing in on their gotcha.
They're still rich from IPs that are like 10 years old, right? So like, I know that the industry is kind of like in a weird place, but I think that like big studios, this is, if I was the owner of a big studio, this is the perfect time, right? I am trying to take a shot because, this is also beneficial. Yeah, maybe I lose out, but I also could maybe get the next big thing, right? The best story that I can get. And I think that's important, like, to your viewers. I
actually think the bigger studios are probably less inclined to change things up to try.
Why?
Because they're already raking in the money. There's no reason to like gamble on something like that. Like I think it's more like the tier 2, tier 3 studios, like outside of Bones and the ones that we associate with like even Trigger. I think
bigger.
Trigger's a very recognizable name, but I wouldn't put them at the same level as like A1, Bones, these Toei, like
right.
these guys, but like your Wit Studios who are like trying originals and stuff, like they have more to gain. Yeah, no, like they have more to gain to try and make these things work. And I think it really is tough. And one of the things that I think Netflix, because you brought them up, one of the things that is really nice about making shows for Netflix is you're not prisoned by the network like limitations, right? Because networks have a very specific amount of episodes that you can do. You have to like achieve this sort of episode length every single time. It must make that block work, right?
Yep.
Whereas Netflix, you
Kind of just do whatever.
A lot of people, you just do whatever. Like Squid Game was like what, 6 episodes? Each episode was like somewhere around an hour. Who knows? And
and like Way of the House Husband for season 1 technically, or the first was just 6 episodes. Season 2 or whatever, second half was 4.
Yeah. So they have a lot of creative freedom, and that's actually one of the big benefits of making an original with Netflix is like you get that creative freedom.
That's because they're the bigger studio, right? And that's like, I think, like, why aren't other big animation studios doing that exact same thing that Netflix is doing? I know Netflix is like way more, I guess, I feel like they're raking in more money than probably the average anime studio, but still.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like one of these animation studio business people, and like I wonder what the difference between airing an anime on Netflix versus on standard TV, like how much of a difference does that make for your like brand, how much money you make, how much eyes are actually watching? Because Netflix is really big in the Western world, but I don't know how big it is in Japan, and like clearly TV is like such a huge place where people watch anime in Japan.
And when I was in Japan, Netflix there is amazing. They have so much. They have like I think 10 times the amount of anime that they do here, because they have way more contracts there. So I have to imagine Netflix is still popping over there, because it has Yu Yu Hakusho, it has all this other stuff in Japan. I got to watch SpongeBob in Japanese with English dubs, and Patrick does not have a low voice, by the way. He has a very high voice. But yeah, so like the thing is, Netflix in Japan is really good. So I just don't understand. I just legitimately don't see the disconnect, right? Like I think it's kind of weird.
Yeah, so to kind of wrap up, I think the category of originals, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of studios are just shackled to some of these, some of the business related questions, right? Like I think if they were given full creative freedom to do the thing that they wanted to with Netflix or whatever on like episode length, how many episodes and all this stuff, I think we could see much higher quality originals, honestly.
I would love that.
And that would be awesome. But I think
it sucks because like
Wit
Studios, Wit Studios are the ones that are taking the chances, and they're getting kind of dunked on it, right? Because I think we reported on our Weeb Weekly, if you would, like they're at a questionable loss here. Like pretty
they
big
lost
loss.
millions of yen in terms of earnings for that year when they stopped doing like Attack on Titan and stuff. And so like like it sucks because you would want people to take risks and to be rewarded for that, but it seems like the industry doesn't seem like it's just a gamble, and I think not every studio is in the place to make that gamble. And I don't know. It's scary. So I understand it sucks that shows like Fena and Wonder Egg Party, it feels like they just buckled underneath business decisions or just the restrictions that like network TV has, whatever. I don't know. But it's they're casualties of like what could have been, right? Like, because I think
hate thinking that. Yeah.
Right.
But it's
like
true.
I personally hope at some point, like Fena, Wonder Egg Party, some of these originals, maybe they'll do like a Brotherhood remake, and like they take it and they actually give it the ending that it really deserves. And I'm so sad because like
technically loses studios more money by doing a Brotherhood treatment. Just let them tell the story the first time. Right. True. It's like, oh no, we'll just buy this like really crappy thing that I know I'm going to replace now. But it's like, no point. Just get the one you want now, and this way we don't have to worry about it later. Yeah. This is, and I think this is why, like example, an original Vivi. I think Vivi's ending was exceptional when you when the bar is literally the rest of anime, right? Like maybe that's why I loved it so much more, because I know you were like kind of like, okay, it wraps things up. But it wasn't like anything spectacular, right? Like the rest of it before was really good. But Vivi's ending to me, I just felt like oh wow, it just wasn't the worst. There wasn't space waifu robot machine ships.
It was kind of the way I think about it is like when you watch the Olympics and you know those gymnasts do like the beam exercise and then at the very end they have to flip around and then like they land, right? And for these ones they like land and they're like whoa and they wobble a little bit and then they stick it, right? Whereas like, you know, the shows that we think are godlike, you know, with Cowboy Bebop and whatever, like some of these shows that are originals that do well, they just nail it, you know, they just go they spin around.
Yup.
Their feet on the mat, they don't wobble.
Perfect
anything.
form.
Vivi was like a big old wobble, and you're like, it was fine. You know?
It was a wobble, weak at the knees, but still stuck the landing, right?
But still, you know, it ended, and that was
Fena,
props,
darling.
Vivi.
All of these, they just did the flip, but face planted. They slipped off the bar as they were about to go off the flip. Like, so that's unfortunate, but yeah, like maybe that's why I enjoyed Vivi's ending a lot more, because as for originals, I'm not even joking. I think outside of the ones that are iconic, Cowboy Bebop, all that stuff, Vivi was actually like a decent ending, which makes it weird because everyone's like, yo, that ending was either like okay, and it's like, but okay is really good considering how anime ends.
Like,
I know
if
this
you
is
grade on the curve, Vivi is an A.
if you grade on the curve, it's amazing, right? Like, oh my god.
Oh god, anime, why?
I think that I'm gonna be honest. I think I genuinely grade a lot of anime's endings on a curve.
Okay, well, so that's the original category. Let's talk about another category. I think another big category that I think a lot of people talk about, like poor anime endings, is specifically with like long form shonens, especially like the ones that you see from Shonen Jump, Bleach, Naruto, the original Full Metal Alchemist, Soul Eater. And so it's funny because I bucket these two also sort of in its own semi mini categories of like
Adaptations.
Yeah, like, well, specifically manga and anime, at least back in our day, had the sort of different thing than they do now. Like when we think of shonens now, like My Hero Academia, they just take breaks. Right. They just take breaks and they just animate what has been adapted or that has been written out in manga. Back in our day, they just kept going, whether it was filler arcs or whatever. And sometimes the anime, because for whatever reason, anime just moves faster than manga, I guess, through plot points or something. But anime frequently caught up to the manga, and it got to a point where, holy crap, guys, we just need to end the show without the manga, right? It's honestly pretty similar to the Game of Thrones ending. Jinx, yeah. It's the Game of Thrones ending where the show catches up to the original thing and they just have to end it and they don't know how. And so they just create their own thing. And so like, I think famously Full Metal Alchemist, the original run, like the ending is one of the most confusing things ever. It's like, okay, he walks through the door of alchemy and he's in World War One? Question mark. And apparently all the people who died in World War One feeds the alchemy, and and you're just like, excuse me, like I have no idea what you're talking about. Soul Eater has also a similar ending where you're just like, like you're just like, I don't understand. And it's literally because it doesn't follow the intent of the rest of the show. And that is just one of the casualties of that time period where animes would end without like really knowing what was going to happen. And thank God for Full Metal Alchemist getting that Brotherhood treatment where they got to revamp things and, give it the ending that it really was supposed to have. Right. And I think like, so that anyways, that's one category. The second category I think is just, I think a lot of shonens legitimately, it's the power creep. The power creep just gets to a point. You start out as I'm going to use Yu Yu Hakusho as an example, but it's really not. No, I'm going to use Dragon Ball Z as an example. Okay, Dragon Ball Z starts off with a guy who just kicking punches. He's just kicking punches. He's just a kid and he's really strong. He kicks and punches, and then he has to overcome his enemy, and now he learns how to like power up, and then he learns to power up again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And
Yeah,
suddenly we're looking at the ending of the show, where the final conclusion, and there's just no one left. Who do you fight when you have fought everybody who's strong? And of course, anime's answer to everything is you have to fight God.
It's always God, dude. It's always God.
It's always God. Like if you played Persona 5, you powered up now and you fight God. God, you're like they it's funny because they just throw biblical references like, you chalice of whatever, man.
Ezekiel.
Yeah, they just throw angel
Gabriel?
names in there. Gabriel, Ezekiel, or like Satan, or Hades.
Hades, and Hades always ends up being the good guy.
It's just like, they just throw all these things at you because they have no room left, right, to match up against the person. And I think Naruto is one of the ones that I think of where it's just like, okay, yeah, Naruto and Sasuke, they had their big conclusion, which was like the thing that really drove a lot of the show. And then it's like, well, okay, so now you guys are so strong, like Sasuke, you have an eye that can literally transcend time. Naruto is some weird amalgamation of fox chakra, frog sage jutsu thing, and also the ghost of your parents. And so the writer's just like, I guess you're fighting the originator of all ninjutsu, I guess. And I don't know, she's a god. It's just like, okay, then we're just fighting God. And I think it's just one of those things where like you just have left yourself no room. And this is why like power creep is one of those unfortunate things that can happen in anime, and it especially happens with like older shonens.
I always worry about it with shonen, specifically shonens. New, old, doesn't matter, right? Like example, I'm already seeing like, My Hero taking like, it's losing its breath here and there, right? Like it's staggering. And I mean, I worry about it, but what if you just let it end?
So the thing is that I think one of the things that more current shonen has done really well is they've put a cap. They're just like, nothing will get stronger than this guy. Is like My Hero Academia does it with All Might. They're like, All Might, dude, he is the strong. It kind of feels like My Hero's going in a direction where maybe All Might isn't going to be the end all be all, but like that's how they set it up, right? And so it was kind of nice to see like who the number one hero is, because now you're always compared to that guy. I think one of the shows that did this really well is Hunter x Hunter, for example. You just know that Netero is he's the top dog, and no one gets stronger than that guy. And so everything is contextualized around that guy. I think even One Piece, even though One Piece also has really bad power creep too, they show the admirals early on, and they're just like absurdly more powerful than what we've seen before. And so you're just like, you get this like power scale that never seems to be broken. Now, the problem with shows like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, it's funny because Naruto does show you what should be the top in the Hokage, like very early, but then they break it also incredibly early with like Orochimaru and like some of the like Akatsuki and all that. But like, Dragon Ball Z, they just never show you the top. They just keep scaling up until
the top scales to Goku to give him some kind of issue.
Yeah, and no matter what, Goku has to always scale up to that thing. And so it's you have no realm of context to understand exactly how powerful. And I think not knowing that context makes it harder as a viewer to enjoy an ending, because it just always feels like an ass pull. It always feels like an ass pull when it's just like, he's just stronger because, let's see what comes out of here. He's an alien. Okay.
Space.
What you got there, Kishimoto? It's God. And that's it. It just feels bad when the final thing just ends up being God. And just
that's because God's name is in the entry hat like 50 times. I feel like that's the most why do you think it's God, dude? Yes, fair. It's stacked. I mean, that's why you brought up Yu Yu Hakusho, but I think like, it had a long run, dude. Like it had like 120 some episodes, something like that. But it ended well. I mean, maybe some people didn't like how Three Kings went, like specifically the conclusion. But I mean, You know, for the bait, like for how most shonens go, I'm glad it ended. I'm glad it ended.
I think Yu Yu Hakusho though gets a pass because they were like OG. They get the OG, like you're an original gangster, you did it first, so like you get the biggest pass on all this, and like because like I think like, you know, when you get to the arc where Yusuke is like, oh, I've got demon blood, you're like, where did that come from? But you're kind of like, that's okay. Like Yu Yu Hakusho kind of was one of the early. It feels to me. I mean, I might be wrong here. I don't have a PhD in anime manga history or whatever, but to me it was like one of the early. Oh damn, okay. You can let me know. Where's the doctorate from, Crim? Just curious.
Myself.
No, but the thing is like,
Crim.
just I'm just imagining behind you. You have like one of those placards that like doctors and dentists have. And it's just like University
Anime.
of me, Crim, PhD. Yeah, I don't know.
I think Yu Yu Hakusho is a prime example of a show that was long form and was able to change its form numerous times and still do well. Like it initially started off as a ghost detective show. Then it became a battle anime. Then it became, you know, like the Three Kings demon arc, right? But it ended, right? It ended. I think it's okay to end a show, and I think it's okay to end a long form show. Long form doesn't mean that it has to be like forever, you know, like it doesn't need to be like how One Piece started in 1999 and it's still going, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like whether or not One Piece is good or bad, that's a whole nother thing, right? But the thing here is I think that shows can continue, or I mean that the shows can end, and I think studios should accept that.
Yeah.
Just give it the story that it wants. And that's the most important thing. And that's why I'm always concerned about shonens. Because, so example, Demon Slayer has an ending. I know that it's going to end. Yeah. And I think in that is, maybe it's just because I've seen so much anime now never end or go on longer and like overstay its welcome. But like, I love that. That's refreshing. I think more shonens, more things like that should have an ending in mind, not try to milk it. Look, you can still make money years after. Cowboys ended forever. Cowboy Bebop, all these movies, all these franchises have ended forever and a day ago. You can still make money. So if you're worried about the money part of it, it's still there. It's not like it goes anywhere.
Yeah. I would rather see shows end and end on a good note and we celebrate the memory of it than turn into Bleach, where very clearly they just ran out of ideas, right? Like, because I think like the bad thing about some of these shows, and you see this in Western media where you have a show that has a good premise. Like I think Bleach's premise in early arcs, amazing, so good, right? And same thing with Western media, and then after some time, you can clearly tell that the author, the writers, the showrunner, whatever, they just are at a loss. Where do we go from here? How do we keep this show going, you know? And you just get to a point where the quality continues to drop and drop and drop until we remember it for the show that it became, not what it was, right? And it's so it
Metallica.
Actually it makes me Metallica. It makes me sad though, because like I loved Bleach. I thought Bleach was amazing. I loved the music. I loved the aesthetic.
Arguably one of the best shonens if you just exclusively take the first season.
If you cut it off from where Aizen arc ends, you know, and you're like, that's it, that's the show. But then it was like necromancy. It was like the guy Tite
Pet
Kubo
Cemetery situation.
dude, yeah, Pet Cemetery. It just comes up and it's not anything what you expected, right? Pulling Edward and Elric, right? Like it's just just it's just not what you can. And so like I would rather it just gracefully end, let it rest in peace.
Yeah,
and
eternal life is
it's a doozy, you know.
Yeah.
And so I would like it to. Like you said, I think I would prefer to see some of these shows just end.
Yeah, see, the questions. I mean, the main things that would make me think that a studio would want to keep it going is financial, monetary gains. But that seems silly, right? Because obviously you can still make money. There's still a ton of money in all these IPs.
Yeah.
You can go and make even crappy spin-offs like Boruto or something like that, right? Like
Oh,
Like,
dude, Boruto fans are gonna come after you.
Whatever. They know. Even Boruto fans know that Boruto's bad. They just watch it because they love the world. Okay, everybody knows that.
Oh my! I'm not here. I just
look. I'm gonna touch that with a 1 foot pole right now. Actually, I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna let you all know. You cannot tell. Like Boruto was first. Like everybody always tells me it's the same thing. No, dude. Just watch. Give it to like the later seasons. So you want me to watch 2 to 3, like 2 seasons of caca to finally get to something like of somewhat substance? Dude, I'm sorry. Boruto, like it, no.
I'm not here, Boruto fans. Don't shoot me.
Look, you can look. I will take the full heat. I'm good at that. I'm good. Look, cook me a new one. All right. But look, I don't even know if I'm in the minority here. Am I? Do people actually like Boruto? I mean, example, I watched Yashahime, right? Mm-hmm. I loved Inuyasha, like to death. But like, dude, Yashahime, not a lot of things happen in there. and it literally feels like the entire show brings nothing to the universe. And it's just like, hey, you remember Inuyasha? Yeah, you do. That's it. That's literally what I feel every time I watched Yashahime. Yeah. And Boruto feels the same way. It's like, yo, you remember that one dude Naruto? You remember all the characters? Yeah. Okay,
farming
cool.
nostalgia.
Here you go. Yeah, that's honestly what it's there for. Yeah. But regardless of whether or not you're okay with farming nostalgia, there's still ways to make money. So let it end. Although I feel like Boruto is not going to end until Boruto has a kid, and then Naruto is going to be the grandpa, and then it's just, oh god. But yeah, I think this is just a big. What other reasons does a studio have to keep a show running for so long? If you have a story,
you nailed it. I think it's just it's the money. The money talks, and I think again this is very similar to shows in the U.S. when like Dexter. Weeds.
Oh man, they're bringing that back, by the way.
Prison Break, again, like all these shows that that aired where they just needed to give them another prison to break out. Like they just
Dexter Brotherhood is essentially what this is, by the way. I hope you know.
Dexter Brotherhood. But dude, like it's just money speaks, and actually now we've gone through 2 categories now, and money has been the issue both times. Kind of, it's tersely like
is
business
the root of all evil.
Yeah, it just ruins good creativity apparently. But yeah, it's I think it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think we touched on a lot of the things that these things have, where it's just either you outlive your welcome, or you literally just run past the original ending, and you just have to slop something together and turn it in as a final.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then of course there's just, you don't know. There's the expiration date. So you're just like, well, this today could be the day, so we got to somehow end it. Every episode could be the last one, so we just got to make it seem like an ending, but not. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, I think anime, I think this overall, like, the overall theme, as you had mentioned, is money, right? So I think for healthier practices in this world of anime, something that we all love, and, we want to, like, we invest our time into it. I think what we want is just to see it get the ending, the story that it wants to tell. And I hope that studios eventually get to this point where they understand it's a gamble, but then maybe what that means is that not every single light novel, every single anime gets made. And I'm okay with that. Like, look, there's tons of D-list Marvel characters I like, but I'm not going to ask for them to get a movie, right? Like, I understand. I love the Marvel universe, but I don't think every character needs a whole movie, right? Or a whole franchise built around it. So maybe that's just what that means for the anime industry. We don't get 19,000 isekais, but and I mean, maybe we go back to, like, this could be a monkey's paw kind of situation. I don't know, but maybe we go back a little closer to like the late 2000s, early like 2010 era, where there wasn't as much anime coming out, but the stuff that did come out was solid. Yeah, there was still trash in between the seasons, but like it's not like how it is now. Because nowadays, when there's like 5 animes per, 6 animes per season from each studio, right? Like, of course you're going to want to take the safe bet. So maybe we just dial it back.
Yeah, I think because my thoughts on that, it kind of goes into our next category, which is the adaptation stuff. But just sort of like rewind a little bit on just these sort of really, really long form stuff is that I think like it's probably hard for people to like, I imagine that it's not a surprise to the writers of these shows who are continuing this on to be like, is this as good as our early season? You know, like I don't think I assume, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but like I don't think that a writer goes and writes these kind of shows and they're like 5th, 6th season and they go, this is awesome, guys. This is just as good as season 1 and 2. You know, like I think a lot of them are probably scrambling for ideas and like, how do we keep this going? Like blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure there's a lot of stress for that. And we know they're stressed for that. But like Jujutsu Kaisen, the author had to take a hiatus literally due to that pressure of like, how do I continue on with so much on my shoulders here? And I know it's got to be tough. So yeah, it's such a weird, delicate balance to be like, I'm past my prime and I should now try to move on and try to make something else that's awesome and great. And or be freaking Odu from One Piece and continue to write like, I don't know, billions of pages worth of great arcs, dude. It's crazy to me how One Piece has continued to be like really good. Like how does this guy not fall apart at the seams of ideas for his characters? I have no idea.
Also continues to like change the game, when it comes to like I may not follow One Piece to this day still like to a T, but I can say that a lot of the topics brought up in One Piece current issues and stuff like that's really, dude, it's pretty big, dude. So it's cool to see that, I mean, and there's of course always going to be that one person like truly a great because they just can't stop. They can't stop, and they it's kind of concerning. I do wonder what practices got them into that form, but yeah, like One Piece is like the very rare exception where the writers just, yeah, let's keep going. Let's party a little bit harder. We'll just keep doing it.
Dude, that guy's a machine. But yeah, I wanted to touch on what you brought up earlier, kind of with like the millions of isekais, these like adaptations that just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And not all of them get endings, but for the ones that do, I think we run into some problems. And this is probably one of the wider buckets, I think, because out of the shows that I wanted to bring up, like we have your Promised Neverlands, your Akame ga Kills, your Death Notes. And I think specifically for Akame ga Kill and Death Note, like I lump those two together as like these shows that have adaptations that do the ending from what I know, the original source. But it wasn't like the original source had a great ending anyways, and they just sort of wrote alongside with it. And but then like coupled onto the fact that anime is also just a tricky medium in general, they also trip themselves up. So I think like what's interesting is Akame ga Kill pretty faithfully goes alongside the manga from what I recall, but it just like runs into pacing issues of trying to wrap things up faster than it felt like they had space for. And I actually kind of feel similarly a little bit with like Death Note too, where like, well, I know people kind of wanted it to end with L, but dude, I don't know. Like, there's just this. Actually, do you know if I need to double check this and triple check this? But does Nier and Mello? I forgot his. I hated the other guy. Mellows. Was that also in the manga? I'm pretty sure it was. I just want to quadruple check because it's been such a long time.
I did not read the manga, and nor did I read the manga or the source material for Akame ga Kill. However, I do fully agree that Akame ga Kill definitely had some pacing issues, but I still overall like the show, but I don't know the source material personally. And I will say that it does try to wrap things up. It felt like characters were just dying off left and right.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wait, hold on. Like, there's so much more time I could have still had. Like, the girl with the scissors. Like I forgot. Like
the big purple scissors.
Yeah, like she was cool and like she just died, right? And okay, then all of a sudden everybody just died left and right with no reasoning behind it. It's just like, okay, we just need to kill him. That's it. Simple as that. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the show, like just straight up as an original, or to me, what was an original because I don't know they were source. But at the same time, that this is one of those things where I wish they kind of changed a little bit, added a little bit more. Like example, The Walking Dead, comic book wise, Shane, the main character's best friend, actually dies in the first issue, like 10 pages in or 5 pages in. The show then takes it, extends his duration, pushes him in to like season 3 or something like that, and then just really deepens his backstory. And you know what's like, that is what I would love to see from anime. So like that would have been amazing, because then Shane became a bright spot of the show. Like Shane, like they were able to, like, obviously it's a little bit easier because, you know, you have more room to work with. You know, you're not in this tight space because he dies technically in the comic books immediately. Mm-hmm. So manga to like anime, this is one of those things where you should be expanding, not the pointless stuff. And I think that's what I wish Akame Got Killed did.
Yeah, it was. I think it's unfortunate. You know, I wonder again if Akame Got Killed was just a victim of the network restrictions, right? They were just like they did the first, you know, 8 to 12 episodes, and they were like, oh, this feels really good, guys, we're onto something awesome. And then they get to the back 12 and they're like, oh, God, guys, we've only adapted 25% of the manga. And they're like, all right, guys, every episode we just gotta kill.
You're dead. You're dead.
Yeah, you're dead. You know, like we gotta wrap it up, guys. Wrap it up, and then they just speed it up. You know, and so like, I wonder if that's the case that happened for Akame Got Killed, and I also wonder for like Death Note too. It was just like they ended. I don't know what episode ended for when like Nier and those guys come up, but like, you know, they were just like, well. So I just looked this up. Nier and Melos or whatever, they were just in a Death Note one shot. They weren't even like a long form story. But I'm sure when the Death Note thing was premiering on TV, they were like, we gotta extend this a bunch of episodes, and so that's why the anime felt so like awkward when it came to Nier and that whole arc. And I think most people who watched Death Note really felt like that whole thing kind of dropped the ball. And I wonder again if it's just like the network restrictions of having to end on 24 episodes is just really hard. It must be really hard, right? Like,
I mean, it has to be, right? Black Butler season 2.
Yeah.
Butlers became mech suits, right? like you actually had battle butlers. The second butler didn't even exist in the source material. They just fought because why not, I guess. So yeah, this is one of those things where I think if you take it, like, you just kind of like think back to like, you think about how all of the industry works. I think the big takeaway here is that I don't like the way studios are run right now. I don't like that studios have this like hard, like, you know, episode minimum, maximum, you know, you need to hit this, and this. Why I think anime as a whole, at least industry wise, needs to move to where a little bit along the lines of the Netflix method of just do whatever you want. 6 episodes.
I don't think that's going to happen for TV, but what I think could work, you know, and you mentioned this a little bit ago, is that like when you need padding on your shows to creatively, like, I don't know if you just reach out to the original creator and you like add some backstory to some characters who normally didn't get in the manga. I think that would have been so good for some of these shows. And I guess I'm kind of eating my words a little bit because that's actually technically what they did with Nier and Mello, but like it just didn't really work out. But maybe I kind of appreciated thinking back, even though I didn't end up liking it that much. Like maybe I appreciated it. Maybe I just wish they just ended it with L. I don't know.
I think they should have just ended it.
I'm 50-50. Yeah, maybe they should have just ended it with L. Yeah.
I am A-okay with endings. Like, again, clearly, if you've gotten anything for the listeners at home or watchers, you know I'm okay with just letting it end, and it's fine. You can still explore the world. You just don't have to follow those characters. Like, think about it. Star Wars. Thank God I don't have to follow the Skywalkers anymore. Right? we've got like the Mandalorians. We've got all of this other stuff. That's fine. Do that. Give me more of that world. Sure. but you don't need to like keep expanding on this one arc, right?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough though for these adaptations because they don't own the IP, right? And they're not the person who came up with that, right? So for them to like try to expand it, that's going to be hard. And I don't know. I think it's just tricky because I think like when a show gets adapted, I don't know how often the original creator is like tied in with the show and how it's run and like,
well, the ones that do well, they work very closely with it, right?
I mean, maybe I don't actually know what like percentage of the shows that have like really good endings are like really tied in with the original creators. Like I imagine for a lot of them, like they're probably pretty hands off, you know, like in the case of say like Game of Thrones, like apparently George R.R. Martin was overseeing some of the writing that happened in the last 2 seasons and like that didn't pan out.
He gets to play coy. He's like, "Oh, that wasn't my ending. I was gonna go with a different one." The studio execs messed it up.
You got draft number 3. It was actually a number 4, just somewhere I can't find it. Honestly, I think like for a lot of these adapted shows, they just don't know how to pace things out properly for the episodes that they are given.
Because the minimum and maximum amount of episodes that are required.
But the thing is, like, I don't think you can ever get rid of that, actually, unless you somehow get rid of TV eventually, which maybe will happen. But like until the TV, like, because TV is such a strict schedule, like I don't know when there will ever be. And then otherwise, like if Netflix gets so big and they can buy up all the studios' works all the time and no one ever needs to put anything on TV and it's all just Netflix or something, sure, maybe in that case, like that there's like that dystopian future where Netflix just owns the world. But like I think realistically, I think one of the big issues is that like it shouldn't come to be a surprise when these shows have, because what it feels like happens a lot of the time is the show has to know that they have 24 episodes right off the bat with say like a Comic Got Kill or Death Note or whatever, right? Or I think Death Note was longer, it was like 40. They have to know the amount of episodes. And so like I feel like I think in anime a lot of times they just completely underestimate the importance of writers. That's actually how I feel a lot of the times with like even in the originals with like how Darling in the Franxx ended. I just feel like there just isn't as much thought put into how to adapt someone else's work and write around it in a way that'll make sense for the limit. And like for in the beginning when we were first talking about it, I was kind of like, can we throw it under the bus under the whole network thing? But I also think like, especially when it comes for an adaptation, right? I think for original it's harder because like, you know, we talked about this where it's like maybe it gets a second season, and so you kind of like maybe want to keep it open ended. In an adaptation's case, you don't have that restriction. It is up to you to just decide what the pacing should feel like and whatever. And instead, I would just wonder if they just don't pay attention to the writing, or, and this is just like another complete aside, is like the anime industry is always running so fast that they can never stop and think about it. And like, I think like it's pretty famous now, right, that the anime industry releases things as like soon as it's basically done, like it's hot off the press. It's like those $5 pizzas at Caesar's Palace, right? Like, or Caesar's whatever.
Little
it's called.
Caesars,
Little Caesars, yeah.
that probably has pizzas.
I'm pretty sure they do, but like, you know, they put together that $5 pizza and they shove it out into the oven and they're just like, hopefully someone buys it, right? Like that's kind of how I think a lot of these anime adaptations feel. And like that's where the isekais, the 11 billionth isekai comes into play, right? It's just like, hey bro, there's a new isekai hot off the press, go get it done. They're like, okay, here's 12 episodes, and they're just like chewing that stuff out without thinking about it, and they don't even think about like what the pacing could be, and like it just feels like they get a rudimentary understanding of it, and then when they have to adjust at the end when they realize the pacing is off, they like try to cram everything back in, and like you get a Comic Got Kill, you know?
Space.
Or even worse, you get Promised Neverland, where they're just like, what if we just ended the show on a slideshow because we just don't have space, and like, just okay. I guess that's what we get. I don't know.
Yeah. See, and like, yeah, you're right. Studios should be planning for this, right? Like 24 episodes, 12, whatever, 13 episodes, sure. Mm-hmm. But like when it comes to adapting, that's still like, kind of difficult, right? Because you want to get every bit of it in there. You want to stay true to the source material, but at the same time, you gotta fit this, whatever imaginary, like finish line. And I think that's bad. I think that's bad for the creative process. I think that's bad for what, some shows have been able to do it, yes. And that's why those are the ones that we remember, right? Those are the legends, right? Like, but if we were able to just freely, like if they were able to freely just put whatever they wanted out, tell the story they would have told, no deadline, no nothing, just do what you want, I think we'd have a lot of good animes. I think we'd have like the quality in anime would exponentially like just skyrocket up. I mean, I genuinely, outside of like High Rise, whatever, I've liked almost every anime that's come to Netflix. Exclusive. Like I thought Beastars was good. I thought BMA was fine, like pretty solid. And I just think that it's because it just feels right. I don't know. It doesn't feel weird.
So Beastars was actually a TV thing that got brought to
right.
Netflix.
It was delayed. It was delayed. Mm-hmm. It was delayed. You're right.
Some of these Netflix shows do succeed, and so the thing that gets me is just that some of these shows do it right, and then some of them don't do it right, and so like so I don't blame the 12 episode, like the restrictions on the number of episodes. I simply just blame it on poor writing, right? Or like poor producing, I guess, because like
sure.
I just think
directorial stuff. Yeah, there's a lot there, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
So like I feel like if I was to push the blame on someone, it'd have to be that, right? Like, or yeah, I don't. I guess that's pretty much it for me. Is like I just think that like they just need to listen to writers more, I guess. I don't know.
But I also think, what if the writers weren't also just under this, like, world weight bearing kind of like, pressures and like deadlines? I think that would be just a lot better. And I love My Hero for, this seems so weird to just say, but like, whoa, what if we just took a break?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, oh my God, dude, hold on, let's not get wild here. But like, that's really good. That's good practice, right? And I mean, I just hope more shows adapt that, and I hope more shows just. I know that you're right. I do agree. Like I understand that we'll never break away from the 12 episode model, right? Like mm-hmm. that'll like at least not anytime in our lifetime. But I think it is a good thing to think about as a studio. I don't know if you're for some odd reason a studio exec is listening to us, but adapting them, like the philosophies where they just let the writer tell the story. I think that's what I care about. That is 100% what I would say is the most important thing. Not care about the network will want it if they want it, right? If it's a good enough show, they'll want it. Trust on that.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I hope I like. My general hope for all these adaptations that come out, because I think like the vast majority of the anime that comes out are these sort of adapted pieces, and I just hope they figure this out, because it does feel like an industry problem to me. And so like I think it's solvable with the right pieces in place, I guess, but like, well, who knows what exactly it'll take, but yeah, I think with that said, we have reached 3 of like the main big buckets of like animes and anime endings and why they could potentially suck, and then there's my favorite 4th category, which is just like shows that just don't have endings. They just gave up on the show. Like no game, no life. And yeah, I don't know. Like it's funny because like I think in the 2010s era of anime, it was really frequent where
High
shows
School
would get
Dead happened, but I mean that was under unfortunate circumstances.
Devil is a part-timer, no game, no life.
Devil's a part-timer, aren't they getting a season
I
2
think
now?
they might.
Like,
So that's what I'm saying is suddenly
11 years
2020,
later?
2020 is like the decade of revisiting some of these like lost shows that just only got a season 1. They were great and they just never came back to it. It feels like this fourth category could be a dying breed for good reason, and it could be that more shows will pick this up because I again like. People did not think we would get another season of Chihaya Furu. We thought that we would never get another season of Oregaeru. You know, like there are these shows that like people were like, wait, this show was so good. Why did it never get another season? And it feels like finally we're getting to a point where we're seeing some of this. But yeah, the fourth category is sort of throwaway. It's just like these shows that just never get revisited. And I hope they do, because I think the reason why this feels like the bad ending for these shows is that we like them. We like the seasons. So like give us more. So, but also let them die if they need to die. You know, if they have to end,
don't force it. Okay. So, you know, without going too long on the episode today, I guess there's one last closing thought, I think, right? I think, yeah, like just these shows, right? Obviously, the ones that probably should get some kind of ending, even if it sucks. I'd rather have some ending, right? Yeah, an attempt at an ending. But so we've seen a lot of endings. What is the worst ending to you?
Worst ending? Oh,
yeah,
man. What is the worst ending I've seen? That is a like deeply philosophical question. Darling in the Franxx has to be one of my like least favorite endings, like most emotionally unsatisfying endings of all time.
It was, yeah, you know, Darling in the Franxx is pretty high up there for me in like unsatisfactory endings, which is funny because like the first 15 episodes or so, I loved that show a lot. But
actually, I know my answer.
Okay, all right, lead us into it.
I think the worst anime ending of all time goes to The Promised Neverland. I actually think I can't think of an ending that is so insulting
to every party involved.
I seriously, like, legitimately to all parties involved, it feels just like a complete insult and slap in the face. Like, for the original creator of Promised Neverland, you'd never even bothered to build on the story of the show and the way it actually ended or whatever. For the animation studio, you ended on a freaking slideshow. You just ran out of budget. No one who worked on that show probably wants credits on a slideshow that they prepared for the ending. Yeah, like just cut me out of that thing. For the viewers, it's so insulting because, you know, you're like, oh, that's it. Well, it was just a crap ending. And then not only that, for people who are actually fans of The Promised Neverland, it's a slap in the face because they showcase in those slideshows like potential arcs that could have been kind of cool or interesting and like world building for the show that like maybe you would have wanted to see, and they just slap it in a slideshow and they're like, you're never gonna get it because it's over. And so on all fronts, I think that the slideshow at the end of The Promised Neverland might actually be the worst ending of all time for me.
I can actually, like Promised Neverland season 2 is very much so up there for me in bad endings because, like, holy crap, it's bad, right? Like, yeah, like, and actually, to your point, every party involved is just not happy. So that might actually just be the worst ending of all time. I mean, damn. I mean, yeah, like everybody is not happy. Wow. Like why even have it?
Even the businessmen probably were like, dude, we didn't make money off the show. You know, like I sincerely believe that that was one of the most train wreck endings of all, like,
could there have been a worse anime ending than that?
It's a little recency biased, I know, because like it's happened pretty recently, but I cannot remember anything right now off the top of my head where it's failed on that spectacular of a way.
Yeah, like it's almost like an art.
Because like there were shows like Guilty Crown and people say like Claymore and like these other shows that like also had stupendously bad endings, but like you can kind of go and be like, oh well, because of this, because of that, but like we did get this, we did get something. Like there's still like little silver linings that you might be able to take away, but legitimately for The Promised Neverland, there's nothing. There's no redeeming thing about it. It is
Like,
a
what?
flat 0 in value.
I'm curious if there's anybody out there that's defending that ending. You know?
There's not. There's only delusional people. Delusional people who need to seek medical advice, and like it's just like there's just no possible way you could defend that, in my opinion. I guess
I don't think there's a single person out there that's like, yo, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. That ending was pretty solid. Like, dude, no, there's nobody that's out there.
I think of that copy pasta where there's like, I'm a fan of X. If this person has no fans, it must mean I'm dead. Like there's just that one guy who's just holding on to the Promised Neverland, just like I still love you.
But I don't even think that guy loves it. Like,
yeah, he's just
can't exist.
Deluded.
I mean, yeah, like I was gonna say, like, some kind of, I guess, basic answers, but that's just because it was like budget issues, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of it is written up to budget issues, and I think like one of the more upsetting endings for me was actually, like I would say Evangelion.
Yeah,
I know
original ending was something.
Like it. Look, I love that show, and that's why I think it's because I love that show so much, and I think because of how good it was. Right? Like that ending just was bad. Mm-hmm. It's just like, wait, so hold on. I invested, 23, 25 episodes or whatever. And it's just going to end, oh, by the way. like, dude, that was, I don't know, man. Like, did anybody get happy from that ending? Like, can anybody defend that ending? I mean, actually, like, that ending was so bad, you saw how bad it got. I mean, just...
This many people. I'm holding up a 0.
I figured that. Either that or you're doing an inappropriate gesture. Like the thing here is, but one or the other. Dude, I think Evangelion's ending could recently. I would say Promised Neverland's pretty bad, but I think because of how big on a scale of Evangelion was and how good it was, that ending was just offensive.
Yeah,
right, like I'm very few things offend me. That one's just like, yo, you just shit in my or pooped in my cereal, right?
I do think though, for the original Evangelion ending, one of the brilliant things about it is like, okay, so imagine you put yourself in Gainax's shoes. You have this tremendously successful series up until this point, and you look in your piggy bank and there's nothing left, just quarters. And then you're like, guys, we have to end this somehow. This is my plan, and he goes up into the chalkboard and he's like, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. And it's just like, we go with the third option. We plea for insanity. And then the animators look at each other and they start the slow clap, like, yeah, we like it. We have it out. Dude, this is just good magic play. This is just playing to your outs, man.
Yeah, that's just brilliant. They made it so we would demand like a real ending, and I guess it worked.
They could have promised Neverlanded it. They could have just shown a couple of slideshows, put some sentimental music over it. You just have like a picture of Asuka, like going to school, picture of Shinji hugging his dad. You just like showcase like, yeah, that's just how it ends. I don't know. And then
a napalm explosion. End of story.
Yeah, and then the end. Boom.
Yeah.
And that would have been worse, right? That would have been worse. That would have been worse. So I think the plea for insanity was at least, that was a pretty strategic play. Look, no one can argue. So the thing is that if you come up with something so incomprehensible, then there's got to be at least 10% of people who watch it and go, that's art. There's a small percentage chance when it's so incomprehensible like that somebody goes and tries to derive meaning from it, and then they accept it as like, oh, they went beyond. Avant-garde. I'm telling you right now, if I ever am on a creative project and we completely run out of money, I'm taking the Evangelion route.
That's a good idea. we'll get in the director's cut. All right, so if that's the case, make this ending just unbearably bad and nonsensical. Oh my god.
Fena tried, but you can't do it the same way Evangelion did it, so
Yeah, you gotta just take your own crappy route. Like, oh man. But okay, so like, I mean, obviously, anyone listening and watching at home, let us know what you thought was the worst ending. And as I think about it, though, I never Promise Neverland. Just it starts to seep in, and you might be right, man. Like that might be pretty like Evangelion was really bad, but it was like bad because it was like just I'm not mad at you, I'm just upset, right? Like but like Promise Neverland was just like good fudge, dude. I hate everything. Like this is just wow. So let us know if there was anything worse, or if maybe it is Promise Neverland that's the worst ending ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I the takeaways are that from at least on my point of view, I think studios need to make the workplace a little bit easier and the deadlines a little bit less harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that'll be a big turnaround, and just let the story like tell itself. Not worry about like I hope someday the story can just tell itself and not fit some kind of like quota, and I think that'll be huge. But yeah, that's like from my closing statements.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like the industry still has a lot of work to be done in terms of making, and I think in the long run, it'll be a win-win scenario where, animators will be able to live their lives. We, the viewers, will get better anime, and like, and from that, the companies, the businesses will make more money too. And it's like, I honestly believe, everybody wins. And so I hope it happens. I hope that like the idea of releasing quality anime is rewarded more than just getting more adaptations out. And I hope that will be the case. And so, thank you guys so much for watching. This episode, we got real deep into the art of the anime ending, and we hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you guys next week here on the Niisan Podcast YouTube channel or any of the other podcast websites. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes. So we thank you guys for listening in. See you guys next time. Peace.